Is the space agency good enough to form a rivalry with NASA? What if we told you that NASA and even the US military fear that the Chinese space agency may overtake NASA? You would not believe us, but this video will convince you. Hello guys and welcome back to Discovery Scene. Today, let us see what the NASA chief warned about China taking over the moon. It is a fact, we are in a space race. The former Florida senator and astronaut Bill Nelson said this in an interview. Do you know with whom they're competing? Competition with NASA must be some other strong nations, right? How many of you thought of China? Very little number of you for sure, but it is the truth. And it's true that we better watch out that they don't get a place on the moon under the guise of scientific research. Nelson is hoping that China may even ask to keep out. Keep out, we are here, this is our territory. So now we hope things are clear for you. NASA and the Chinese space agencies are competing to set foot on the moon and take control of it. Nelson even says that China has a habit of forming territories once they reach an unexplored area. He even gave an example of the Spratly Islands. Do you know the reality of these islands? We'll come back to that later. China is an aggressive nation. If they see someone as their rival, they will never stop until they defeat them. Here also, their space program recently opened a new space station. Beijing has announced that they will land taikonauts on the moon by the end of this decade. The Chinese government took forward its vision for more ambitious endeavors in December. These endeavors were building infrastructure in space and creating a space governance system. Any further delays or mishaps in the US program will be advantageous for China. The US is still waiting for a new series of systems and equipment under development. Moreover, NASA's moon landing timeline has already slipped a year from the Trump administration. This is not about science, this has political lens too. That is why the US military has also expressed their concerns about Beijing's development of space systems that could threaten the US satellites. This could be alarming regarding the security implications of Beijing's forays into deep space. It is entirely possible that they could catch up and surpass us, Space Force Lieutenant General Nina Armagno said. He had visited Australia as China was launching its 10th crew to its Shenzhou space station. The progress they have made has been stunning, stunningly fast. That is true. The China National Space Administration, which was developed in 1993, has the resources to fight against NASA, which was founded in 1958. China could even land on the moon's far side and set up a communications relay using a satellite launched the year before between Earth and the moon. China is constantly improving its ability to produce space launch systems for human exploration further into space. More than China, the US is in real tension. Some NASA scientists are also watching with growing concern. A former commander at the International Space Station and Space Shuttle, Terry Virts, who is a retired Air Force colonel, too said his competition has political and security sides. He stated in an interview, "On one level, it's a political competition to show whose system works better. What they really want is respect as the world's top country. Being the first ever country to achieve something in space makes them a dominant power. Going to the moon is such a way to show how strong their system really is. If they beat us back to the moon, it shows that they are better than us. Every country fears China. The smaller countries prefer to keep an alliance with the largest country in the world. The Chinese government is adamant about becoming the strongest administration worldwide. There is potentially mischief China can do on the moon," Virts said. If China set up the moon's infrastructure, they could deny communications. That was just an example put forward by Virts. Having them there does make things easier. There is a real concern about Chinese meddling. China is not too revealing about its motives, but the US has some fear. Those are natural fears too. So we've heard what NASA and the military people of the US have to say. It's a two-party thing. It will only get complicated if both parties clarify their parts. Now let us listen to Liu Pengyu, spokesperson of the Chinese embassy in Washington. Some US officials have spoken irresponsibly to misinterpret the normal and legitimate space endeavors of China. China firmly rejected all such negative remarks tagged on their moon venture. Okay, so now we're in the middle of nowhere. Whom should we stand by? That is a tough question indeed. But subscribing to Discovery Scene and enjoying our videos is quite easy, so hurry up and do it now. Outer space is not a wrestling ground, Liu added. And he's right. The exploration and peaceful uses of outer space is humanity's common endeavor. China always advocates the peace use of outer space, opposes the weaponization in outer space, and works actively toward building a community with a shared future for humankind in the space domain. That sounds good. But China and peace are not friends. They are just classmates who have never been seen talking to each other. If every space agency in each country moves forward in unison, the world will become a much more wonderful place. Nelson has expressed confidence that the US effort is on schedule, noticing the congressional funding for the Artemis program. In 2023, Congress approved $24.5 billion for NASA and about $500 million less than President Joe Biden had requested. But still, it marks more than 5% increase from 2022. Do not look at the top line, Nelson said. Look at the essentials. The human landing system in the former SpaceX's Starliner and a competition for a second lander is now underway. That was fully funded at the president's request. He was confident that Artemis 2, the next moon mission, could take place within 2 years and they could speed that up. By 2024, the mission will send a group into Moon's orbit. But he said that NASA is under tremendous pressure because it's been forced to be cost-saving. As a measure, they must make use of all the avionics the Artemis 1 capsule for the Artemis 2. The goal is constant, to fly Artemis 2 by the end of 2024. They tell me they cannot speed it up and need the time to redo them and recertify and all that. The signature aim of Artemis 3 is to land astronauts on the moon. This is expected to happen by the end of 2025. They're all following this dream too, though the Trump administration plan created a slight delay. All of that is going to depend on 2 things, Nelson said: the readiness of spacesuits and whether SpaceX is ready. And I ask that question every day. How is SpaceX's progress? And all our managers are telling me that they are meeting all of their milestones. From Nelson's words, everything is going pretty well in there. It's just that they have no time to lose. What are Americans worried about? The first thing is that China is also gaining ground and focusing some of the locations for landing on the moon. China within the last decade has had enormous success and advances. The fact is that their moon landing date is nearby. And there are only so many places on the south pole of the moon that are adequate for what we think, for harvesting water and so forth, Nelson said. Will American astronauts return to the moon before China arrives? Nelson's response was in between the good Lord willing. So it's faith that's leading them forward. Let's also wait and watch to see what the good Lord has planned. Now coming to the Spratly Islands. In fact, Malaysia and the Philippines have claimed some parts of the island, but China, on the other hand, claims the entirety of the island group. So a clear picture of how authoritative China wants to become is shown here. What do you think? Nobody owns the moon. The Earth does. Who will complete their respective missions first? Comment down your predictions below and also turn that red subscribe button to grey for more exciting videos. You can click on the right to watch some. If you could, feel free to give us a like as well, make us smile. Thank you, and we'll meet again very soon. Goodbye.